The night was filled with excitement long before the show even started. People lined up outside the huge stadium hours before the gates opened, holding posters, wearing sparkling jackets, and humming their favorite songs. For many of them, this was not just a concert. It was a dream they had waited their entire lives to experience. The kind of night they would tell their children about. The kind of night that only someone like Michael Jackson could create. The stadium was so large that anyone standing in the center could barely see the top of the far seats. It looked like an ocean of people, stretching endlessly in every direction. As the sun slowly set, the lights around the stadium began to glow, giving everything a warm and magical shine. When the gates finally opened, the crowd rushed in with excitement, but also with respect for the moment. People hurried to their seats, chatting joyfully, waving to strangers, and taking photos of the huge stage that stood like a giant in front of them. The stage itself was a masterpiece. It had tall screens, shining lights, and a long walkway that allowed Michael to dance close to the crowd. Even before the show began, the stage looked alive, as if it was waiting for him. As the minutes passed, the seats filled completely. Everywhere you looked, there were people cheering, smiling, or simply staring in awe at the beauty of the stadium. The energy was rising with every second, and it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Backstage, Michael Jackson was preparing for the show with the calm confidence of someone who had performed on the greatest stages in the world. But even for him, some nights felt special. This was one of those nights. He could hear the distant roar of the crowd, growing louder and louder, and he knew they were waiting for him. He stood quietly for a moment, listening. Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and smiled. The world was waiting, and he was ready. As the lights dimmed, a wave of excitement spread through the audience. People got on their feet automatically. The stadium became dark, except for a faint blue light on the stage. For a few seconds, nothing happened. It was silent enough to hear the soft breeze that passed through the open spaces. Then, suddenly, a drum beat echoed through the speakers, one powerful sound that struck the heart of every person standing there. The crowd screamed so loudly, it felt like the stadium shook from the sound alone. One beat was all it took to start a storm of excitement. The screens lit up, showing quick flashes of Michael's past performances, famous dance moments, and close-ups of his smile. The audience shouted even louder with each image. Then the lights came on again, shining like stars, and smoke slowly rose from the center of the stage. The energy was impossible to describe. It felt like every single person was holding their breath at the same time, waiting for the moment they knew was coming. Then, with perfect timing, Michael Jackson appeared on the stage, standing completely still in a beam of bright white light. The screams exploded again, louder than anything before. He didn't move yet. He simply stood there, letting the crowd see him, letting them feel the moment. It was his signature style, making every second meaningful. Even standing still, he had a powerful presence that captured every eye. People cried, hugged each other, and recorded every moment. For many, seeing him live was something they never imagined would happen in their lifetime. After a long pause that only increased the excitement, Michael slowly lifted his head, and the crowd shouted as if the show had already reached its peak. He smiled gently, then pointed toward the audience, acknowledging their love. Without a word, he stepped forward, and the music began. It was one of his classic high-energy songs, the kind that made people want to dance even if they were standing in narrow rows. The band kicked in. The dancers took their positions, and the entire stadium transformed into a sea of movement and sound. Michael danced with the smoothness and precision that made him famous around the world. Every spin, every step, every slide across the stage looked effortless. The lights followed him, the screens magnified his movements, and the crowd matched him with unstoppable enthusiasm. It was as if 80,000 people were moving together in the same rhythm. Fans sang along, clapped in time, and lifted their phones high to capture the magic. The atmosphere was electric, almost unreal. There was no dull moment. Every second felt like a treasure. The music echoed across the massive stadium, reaching the highest seats, touching the faces of fans who had waited years for this chance. The dancers around Michael moved with sharp, flawless technique, but no one could match the energy he brought. His voice carried across the air, strong and clear, filling every corner of the space. Every high note made the crowd cheer. Every dance break made them scream even louder. In the middle of the performance, something even more surprising happened, something only Michael could create. He walked toward the edge of the stage, leaning out just enough for the fans to reach their hands toward him. They were far away, but the idea of being close to him made the crowd go wild. Flashlights blinked everywhere, like stars dancing to the music. The energy kept growing, building into something larger than life. Michael could feel the love of the audience. He had always appreciated the connection he shared with his fans, and tonight, that connection felt even stronger. He moved with more passion, more emotion, feeding off their excitement. He paused in the middle of a dance sequence, looked around at the enormous crowd, and gave a small nod of gratitude. The audience answered with waves of cheers that rolled through the stadium like thunder. As he continued the show, the heat from the lights mixed with the excitement of the moment. His jacket sparkled under the spotlights, sending reflections across the stage. The wind lifted the ends of his hair as he danced. Everything came together: music, lighting, design, talent, to create an unforgettable experience. Even those sitting far away felt as if they were right there, sharing the stage with him. By this time, Michael was fully in his element. Every movement seemed to float effortlessly. The sound of thousands clapping along to the beat filled the night sky. Children sat on their parents' shoulders to get a better view. Couples held hands while singing along. Friends danced together in the stands. And everyone felt the same thing, that they were part of something extremely special. The moment felt perfect. The crowd felt perfect. The performance felt perfect. And as the song neared its end, the energy didn't drop. It only rose higher and higher. Michael hit his final pose, and the lights burst brilliantly behind him. The crowd screamed with joy, completely overwhelmed by the power and beauty of the opening moments of the show. But little did anyone know, something unexpected was about to happen later, a moment that no one in the stadium could ever forget. A moment that would show exactly why Michael Jackson was loved by millions. A moment that proved his kindness, his grace, and his pure class. The night continued with the same powerful energy that had filled the stadium from the moment Michael first stepped on stage. Song after song, he moved across the platform with his usual grace, connecting with the audience in a way only he could. People danced in their seats, clapped above their heads, and shouted his name with pure excitement. The bright lights, the loud music, and the joyful atmosphere made the entire place feel more like a celebration than a concert. It was one of those rare nights when everyone felt united by happiness. As Michael glided across the stage during another upbeat number, he made his way onto the long walkway that stretched closer to the audience. Fans leaned forward, stretching their hands as far as they could, hoping for just a small moment of connection. Michael smiled and waved at them, encouraging their joy. The music was reaching a high point, and the dancers behind him were moving in perfect harmony. Everything felt smooth and controlled until something unusual happened. Near the front row, a man began drawing a lot of attention. He was swaying from side to side, trying to keep his balance. Some people nearby noticed that he wasn't moving the way everyone else was. His steps were uneven, his focus was off, and he seemed to be struggling to stand still. At first, the people close to him thought he was just overly excited. After all, it wasn't uncommon for fans to move wildly during a performance. But soon, it became clear that this man was not moving with excitement. He seemed unsteady in a different way. A couple of security guards, positioned near the front, noticed him too. They kept their eyes on him, trying to decide whether he might need help or whether he was simply too thrilled to be there. The man continued swaying as Michael performed just a few meters away. Then, without warning, the man moved quickly toward the stage barrier, gripping it with both hands. The people around him stepped back a little in surprise, unsure of what he was planning to do. While the music continued to play and the lights danced across the stadium, the man suddenly tried to climb over the barrier. His foot slipped the first time, but he tried again, holding the metal rail tightly. A few fans gasped softly, unsure if they should call for assistance. Before anyone could warn security, the man managed to swing his leg over the barrier. The guards reacted instantly and rushed forward, but they were a few steps too late. The man stumbled onto the open area between the crowd and the stage. The security team picked up their pace, carefully but quickly, trying to reach him before he could cause trouble or hurt himself. The man, however, didn't seem to notice them. He appeared focused on something else entirely, something on the stage. His eyes were fixed on Michael, who was still mid-performance and unaware of what was happening behind him. The man leaned forward, gripping the edge of the stage with both hands. With a determined but clumsy effort, he pulled himself up. The audience members who saw this were stunned. A few of them covered their mouths, a few pointed, and many simply stared with wide eyes. The music continued to play, the dancers continued their movements, and yet something completely unexpected was unfolding right in front of thousands of people. The man made one final push and ended up on the stage floor, landing on his knees. For a brief moment, he stayed down, pressing his palms to the stage as if trying to steady himself. The lights from overhead cast a gentle glow around him, making the scene feel even stranger. The band noticed first, exchanging confused glances but continuing to play. The dancers saw him next and subtly adjusted their positions so they wouldn't collide with him. Despite the surprise, they maintained professionalism, just as they had been trained. The crowd closest to the stage reacted quickly. Some shouted in confusion, some tried to take photos, and others simply watched with disbelief. It wasn't every day that someone managed to get on stage in the middle of a performance. Many wondered how Michael would respond when he finally turned around and realized what was happening. The situation felt unpredictable, yet oddly fascinating. As the man slowly rose to his feet, it became even clearer that he wasn't steady. He tried to stand tall, but his legs shook a little. Still, he lifted his head and looked directly at Michael, who was a little distance away, finishing a smooth turn in his choreography. The man took a step forward, a slow, wobbly step, and then raised his arms as if preparing for something dramatic. The audience held their breath. When Michael turned around again, he finally saw the man on stage. For a second, he paused, letting his eyes adjust to what he was seeing. He had performed in front of millions of people in his lifetime. He had seen surprise moments, emotional moments, and unforgettable moments. But this was something different. This man was not part of the show. He was clearly confused and unstable, yet he had stepped boldly onto a stage shared by 80,000 people. The security guards were now at the edge of the stage, waiting for Michael's signal. They didn't want to rush in too quickly, especially while he was still performing. They stood there, watching carefully, trying to decide the best way to handle the situation safely and respectfully. But before they could act, the man did something completely unexpected. He lifted one hand in front of him and made a small, playful motion, almost like he was challenging Michael to dance. The crowd reacted with a mixture of laughter and surprise. It was such an unusual moment, something no one could have predicted. The man's expression was not threatening. He looked more amused than anything, like he believed he was joining a friendly performance. Michael did not react with fear or anger. Instead, he studied the man calmly, almost curiously, as if trying to understand what had brought him onto the stage. His years of experience had taught him how to stay composed in unpredictable situations. He knew the crowd was watching closely, waiting to see what he would do next. For a few seconds, they stood facing each other, Michael with his calm control, and the man with his shaky enthusiasm. The band continued playing softly, filling the stadium with gentle background sound. The dancers held their positions, unsure of what might happen next. The audience leaned forward, eager to see what Michael would do. The energy in the air shifted. It was no longer the energy of a concert, it was the energy of a moment no one would ever forget. Something about the man's clumsy challenge made the scene unexpectedly light-hearted. There was no sense of danger, only surprise. Some audience members laughed quietly. Others whispered to each other, and everyone waited for Michael's next move. Just then, the man attempted a dance move of his own. He bent his knees, lifted one arm in the air, and spun in a slow, uneven circle. It wasn't smooth or stylish, but it was sincere. The crowd reacted instantly, cheering and laughing with amusement. The man smiled, clearly proud of his attempt. Michael took a slow step forward, his expression warm and calm. The crowd grew louder, sensing that he was about to do something unforgettable. The security guards stayed in place, ready but not rushing. They trusted Michael to handle the moment with his usual grace. The entire stadium seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how this unexpected visitor would be treated. Everyone knew something memorable was about to happen. No one knew just how iconic the moment would become. Michael stood calmly on the stage, facing the unexpected visitor with gentle curiosity rather than worry. The man, still unsteady on his feet, seemed unaware of the thousands of eyes watching him. He looked around with a confused smile, as if he believed he belonged there. Even from a distance, the audience could sense that this moment was about to become something special. Something no one had planned, yet everyone would remember. For a few seconds, the stadium fell into an unusual silence. Only the soft notes from the band filled the air, creating a strange mixture of music and anticipation. The dancers stayed frozen in place, perfectly trained to hold their positions during unexpected moments. The security team stood at the edge of the stage, waiting for Michael's signal. They were ready to help, but they didn't want to interrupt if Michael chose a different approach. Michael observed the man's unstable posture and tried to read the situation with care. He understood people. He understood emotions. And he could see that the man wasn't trying to cause trouble. He looked more confused than anything else. His attempt to dance earlier had made the crowd laugh, not because they were mocking him, but because the moment was so surprising and harmless. The audience leaned in, eager to see how Michael would handle something so unusual. Many performers might have frozen, panicked, or called security right away. But Michael had always been different. He believed in kindness, calmness, and understanding. He believed in turning unexpected moments into positive ones. And right now, that belief was about to shine in front of 80,000 people. Slowly, Michael took one small step forward. The crowd reacted instantly, cheering softly, as if he had announced something grand. The man blinked, surprised that Michael was approaching him. He took a wobbly step back but then regained his confidence and lifted his chin as if preparing to continue his playful challenge. Michael raised one hand gently toward the security team, a clear signal that they should not intervene yet. They stopped immediately, trusting his judgment. The audience, seeing this, erupted into gentle applause. They knew they were watching something rare. A superstar, handling an unexpected situation with calm elegance. The man smiled proudly, misinterpreting Michael's calm approach as a sign that he had truly joined the performance. He attempted another dance step, this time trying to recreate one of Michael's famous moves. He slid one foot forward, tried to lean back, and nearly lost his balance. The crowd laughed again, but the laughter was light, warm, and full of understanding. No one felt threatened. No one felt uncomfortable. It was simply a moment of shared surprise. Michael stopped about an arm's length away from the man. The lights above softened, giving the stage a gentle glow that made everything feel a little more magical. He tilted his head slightly, almost as if he were studying a puzzle, and then offered the man a small, friendly smile. It wasn't a smile for the cameras or the fans. It was a real smile, kind, patient, and full of quiet grace. The man responded by pointing at Michael and then at himself, as if saying, "Let's dance together." His gesture was clumsy, but innocent. The crowd loved it. Cheers rose again, filling the stadium with warm energy. It felt as if the audience had become part of the moment, sharing the surprise, the humor, and the curiosity. Michael took a slow breath and glanced at his band. They understood instantly. The music softened even more, giving him space to create a gentle moment. The dancers stayed still, watching quietly. The spotlight shifted, highlighting just the two of them on the stage. Then, very slowly, Michael lifted his arm and made one smooth, graceful motion, a simple glide of his hand, just like he did in many of his routines. It wasn't a full dance step. It was more like an invitation for calmness, an invitation for the man to relax, an invitation for the moment to unfold naturally. To everyone's surprise, the man tried to imitate him again. He raised his arm too, but it was far from smooth. His hand wobbled, his elbow bent awkwardly, and his feet shifted around clumsily. The audience burst into gentle, joyful laughter. Even Michael's dancers couldn't help but smile from where they stood. Michael nodded softly, encouraging the man. Then, with a soft spin of his foot, he performed a tiny, simple dance move, not one of his iconic, difficult ones, but something easy enough that the man might attempt it. The crowd cheered excitedly, thinking the man would try it too. And he did. He turned slowly in a circle, though not nearly as gracefully. His arms waved around as he tried to keep his balance. At one point, he almost tipped over, but he caught himself, just in time. The crowd clapped loudly, encouraging him as if he were part of the show. It was a sweet moment, filled with warmth and humor. Michael looked at him with gentle amusement. He stepped forward slowly and carefully placed one hand on the man's shoulder. The man froze, surprised by the soft touch, and looked at Michael with wide eyes. Even from the farthest seats, the audience could feel the sincerity in that gesture. It wasn't harsh, it wasn't forceful, it was calm, respectful, and human. Michael kept his hand on the man's shoulder and gave him a small, reassuring pat. It was a simple message. It's okay. The man seemed to understand. His smile softened, and his posture relaxed a little. The audience quieted slightly, sensing the sweetness of the moment. The band, seeing the tone of the moment, continued playing softly in the background. The gentle music wrapped around the stadium like a warm blanket. The dancers stepped back just a little to give more room, highlighting Michael and the man as the center of attention. Michael leaned in just slightly and began guiding the man toward the edge of the stage, not pushing, not pulling, just gently guiding him with a calm, steady presence. His hand stayed lightly on the man's back, helping him walk without stumbling. The man followed, taking small, uncertain steps, like someone learning to walk on a moving boat. The crowd watched with deep admiration. They weren't cheering loudly now. They were watching with quiet respect. It was clear that Michael wasn't just a performer. He was a kind person who treated even surprising situations with patience and empathy. As they approached the edge of the stage, the waiting security guards stepped forward carefully, making sure they didn't overwhelm the moment. They moved slowly, matching Michael's gentle approach. When they reached the man, Michael gave one final, friendly pat on his back before handing him over softly to the guards. The guards didn't act rough or harsh. They understood the tone Michael had set. They helped the man down from the stage calmly, making sure he didn't lose his balance or fall. The crowd applauded softly, appreciating the care shown by everyone involved. Once the man was safely back on the ground and guided away with kindness, Michael stepped back toward the center of the stage. The lights brightened. The music slowly rose again, preparing the audience for the next part of the show. The crowd began cheering louder and louder, recognizing the beauty of what they had just witnessed. Michael turned back toward the audience and gave them a playful spin light, quick, full of charm. The crowd exploded with enthusiasm. They loved him even more now, not just for his talent, but for his heart. In that moment, the night felt even more magical than before. The unexpected visitor had tried to challenge the King of Pop on stage, but instead of reacting with frustration or fear, Michael had responded with pure kindness and class, and the entire stadium had witnessed it. This moment would soon become one of the most unforgettable parts of the show, and the night was far from over. The moment the man was safely helped off the stage, the atmosphere in the stadium changed again, this time in the most heartwarming way. The crowd, who had just witnessed an unexpected interruption, handled with pure calmness and grace, felt closer than ever to Michael. Their cheers grew louder and brighter, not because of a song or dance, but because of his kindness. It was the kind of cheer that came from the heart, a warm wave of appreciation that rolled through all 80,000 people. Michael stood in the center of the stage again, breathing in the sound of the crowd. He didn't look rattled or stressed, not even for a moment. He simply stood tall with a peaceful smile, letting the audience know that everything was okay. His dancers stepped back into position, waiting for the signal to continue. The band members exchanged small smiles with each other, proud that their leader had turned a surprising moment into something beautiful. For a few seconds, Michael gently tapped his chest with an open hand, a simple gesture, but filled with gratitude. The stadium reacted instantly. People cheered, clapped, waved their signs, and lifted their phones high to capture the moment. Many in the crowd never imagined they would witness something so genuine and touching at such a massive concert. The lights above softened again, bathing the entire stage in a gentle glow. Michael took a few slow steps toward the audience, moving with his usual calm confidence. He paused, looked around the stadium, and then did something playful. Something only he could pull off so naturally. He lifted his shoulders lightly and gave a small, teasing smile, as if saying, "Shall we continue?" The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. With that, the music slowly returned, rising like a wave from the band. It started softly, building gently, giving Michael time to find his rhythm again. The dancers, energized by the emotional moment they had just witnessed, prepared to jump back into the routine with even more enthusiasm. Michael took a breath, centered himself, and then made one smooth, effortless spin. It wasn't one of his biggest moves. It was soft, light, almost playful, yet the entire stadium screamed as if he had performed something extraordinary. They weren't cheering for the spin. They were cheering for everything he represented: professionalism, warmth, and unmatched showmanship. Then the beat kicked in. The lights flashed brightly, and Michael glided back into his routine, dancing with the same smooth rhythm that had made him a legend. But something had changed. The energy in his movements now carried a new spark, as if the surprising moment had given him an extra burst of inspiration. The crowd danced along with him. People in the front rows moved their shoulders and tapped their feet. Those in the middle rows waved their arms. Even the people sitting in the farthest seats were on their feet, swaying with joy. It was as if the entire stadium had been lifted into a higher level of excitement. Michael made his way across the stage, hitting each step with accuracy and style. His jacket shimmered under the lights, catching reflections that danced across the screens. The dancers followed him with perfect timing, matching the beat with every move. The music flowed smoothly, almost like it had been waiting for this exact moment to shine again. As the song went on, Michael added small, playful touches to his performance: a wink at the crowd, a light tap of his hat, a short, gentle moonwalk across the stage. Each tiny gesture made the audience cheer louder than before. They could feel his joy. They could feel his gratitude. They could feel the magic of the night growing stronger. The people in the crowd kept sharing whispers and smiles, saying things like, "He handled that so beautifully. He's so kind. This is why he's loved all over the world." Even those who had been recording the earlier interruption lowered their phones for a moment, simply wanting to enjoy the atmosphere with their own eyes. It wasn't just a concert anymore. It was a shared experience, a story to remember forever. In the middle of the song, Michael paused for a dramatic effect. He stood still, letting the music fill the air around him. Then, slowly, he lifted his arm and pointed gently toward the area where the man had been earlier. It wasn't dramatic or teasing. It was simply a soft gesture, almost like a quiet nod of acknowledgement. The crowd reacted with another wave of cheers. They understood the message. Kindness, patience, and calmness had turned an unpredictable moment into something meaningful. It showed that Michael didn't just perform. He connected with his music, with his audience, and with unexpected moments that came his way. The band continued playing, and Michael broke into a short freestyle dance. It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't planned, but it was full of joy. His feet glided smoothly across the stage, his shoulders bounced lightly, and every movement had a bright energy that delighted the entire stadium. When he finished the freestyle, he paused again, this time for fun. The lights dimmed around him. The screen zoomed in. The crowd leaned forward. Everyone knew the famous moment that was about to happen. Michael slid backward into a crisp moonwalk. The stadium exploded. It felt like a giant wave of excitement crashing through the seats. People screamed, laughed, clapped, and jumped. Some even cried. It didn't matter how many times they had seen the moonwalk before. Seeing it live, right after such an emotional moment, made it feel even more special. Michael ended the moonwalk with a gentle pose, chin up, one arm extended. The lights flashed behind him, creating a silhouette that made the moment feel timeless. Then he lowered his hand and gave a soft, charming nod. The applause lasted long after the music faded. When the song finally ended, the crowd refused to quiet down. Their cheers grew louder and louder, echoing through the night sky. Michael walked slowly across the stage, taking in every bit of their love and appreciation. He waved both hands, sending warm smiles to every corner of the stadium. He didn't need to say a single word. His actions throughout the night had spoken louder than anything he could have said. As he prepared for the next song, he glanced once more toward the spot where the man had climbed onto the stage earlier. For a moment, his expression softened again, and in that small, thoughtful pause, the audience sensed something deep. Michael had not been bothered at all. He had understood, reacted calmly, and created a memory that everyone would cherish. The screens lit up with colorful visuals as the next musical intro played. The dancers moved into their places. The lights readied themselves for another explosion of brightness. And the audience, still buzzing with excitement, knew the night was far from over. They hadn't just seen a performance. They had seen a moment of true class. Something only Michael Jackson could deliver with such natural grace and kindness. The stadium was still buzzing with excitement long after the moment with the unexpected visitor ended. People kept talking, laughing softly, and sharing reactions with the friends beside them. Even those who came alone found themselves smiling at strangers, united by the experience they had just witnessed. It was the kind of moment that made a huge crowd feel like one big family, all connected by joy and admiration. Michael stood on the stage, letting the cheers wash over him like a warm wave. He took a deep breath, appreciating everything, the energy, the smiles, the love pouring from the audience. There was no tension left in the air, no confusion, only happiness and respect. It was amazing how one simple act of kindness had changed the whole atmosphere. The night, which had already been magical, now felt even more meaningful. As the new song began, Michael danced with fresh spirit. Every step seemed lighter, every movement brighter. His voice carried smoothly across the stadium, reaching every corner with warmth and passion. The screens showed close-ups of his face calm, peaceful, and glowing under the stage lights. Fans waved their hands in the air, moved their shoulders along with the rhythm, and sang with full heart. By this point in the night, everyone knew they were witnessing something unforgettable. The performance itself was incredible, but what had happened earlier added a deeper layer of emotion. People knew they would never forget the moment when Michael turned an unexpected situation into a moment of grace. It showed his heart, his character, his natural ability to bring peace when many would feel shaken. As the next few songs played, the audience continued to respond with endless enthusiasm. They clapped together in perfect rhythm. They shouted his name between songs. They lifted glowing lights from their phones, turning the entire stadium into a field of bright, shining stars. From the stage, the sight was breathtaking. A soft sea of tiny lights, stretching across the darkness. Michael paused at one moment, simply to look at this ocean of lights. He stood silently, his hands resting gently by his sides, as if taking a mental picture he would carry forever. The crowd sensed his quiet appreciation and began cheering even louder, showing him how much they valued the night. The band continued to play beautifully, and the dancers moved with renewed energy, feeding off the vibrant atmosphere. There was harmony in everything: the music, the movement, the lights, and the shared emotions. It was the kind of harmony only a few performances in the world could ever achieve. As the show neared its final section, the excitement reached new heights. Michael prepared for one of his biggest songs of the night. The crowd knew what was coming. They recognized the intro immediately, and cheers erupted instantly. People jumped, clapped, and waved their arms as the familiar rhythm filled the stadium. Michael started singing with powerful emotion, hitting every note with confidence and clarity. His steps were sharp, quick, and flawless. He danced across every inch of the stage, giving the audience all the energy he had. The dancers around him moved in perfect formation, creating a visual spectacle that felt larger than life. But even with all the dancing, music, and bright lights, the earlier moment stayed fresh in everyone's mind. The unexpected visitor had become a part of the story, an unusual, yet heartwarming piece of the night's magic. And the more the crowd thought about it, the more they admired how Michael had handled everything. Not as a celebrity reacting to a surprise, but as a gentle human being showing kindness. As the song reached its most powerful point, Michael hit a strong pose, and the lights exploded behind him like a burst of sunshine. The crowd screamed with overwhelming excitement. The music soared, the band played with passion, and the dancers gave it their all. It was the perfect high moment to complete the emotional journey of the night. When the final note faded, the stage slowly darkened, leaving only a soft spotlight on Michael. The audience immediately began chanting his name in a steady, rhythmic wave. Michael, Michael, Michael. He stood still for a moment, touched by their love. Then, he placed a hand on his heart again and bowed slowly. One graceful movement filled with respect for everyone watching him. The entire stadium burst into applause. Michael stepped back, wiped a bit of sweat from his forehead, and prepared for one last moment before ending the show. The band began a gentle melody, a soft, emotional piece that contrasted beautifully with the upbeat songs from earlier. The screens behind him lit up with warm colors, creating a peaceful backdrop. He began singing the final number of the night, a song filled with emotion, hope, and love. His voice was soft but strong, reaching into the hearts of every person in the stadium. Many closed their eyes, swaying gently as they listened. Others watched him in quiet awe, soaking in every second. As the song continued, Michael walked slowly across the stage, occasionally reaching out his hand toward the crowd. Fans reached back, trying to connect even from a distance. The dancers stepped aside, giving him space to finish the night with pure simplicity and emotion. There was no need for complicated choreography. His voice alone carried more than enough power. By the time the final chorus came, The entire stadium was singing with him. Their voices rose together, blending into one giant choir. It was beautiful. It was emotional. It was the kind of moment that every person in the audience would remember for the rest of their lives. When the last line of the song ended, Michael held the note for a few extra seconds, allowing the beauty of it to echo through the night. Then, he lowered his microphone, closed his eyes, and exhaled softly. Then he spoke. His voice was gentle, warm, and filled with sincerity as he simply said, "Thank you." The crowd roared. They clapped, waved, shouted, and sent all their love toward the stage. Michael smiled, bowed once more, and waved his hands gracefully. As the lights began to dim, the dancers joined him at the front of the stage, taking a final group bow. The band stood proudly behind them, smiling at the audience. As the lights faded completely, people remained in their seats for a few extra moments, replaying the night in their minds. Some talked excitedly. Some sat quietly, still wrapped in the emotional warmth of the moment. Others looked at the stage with grateful tears in their eyes. But one thing was certain. The unexpected moment with the unsteady dancer, earlier, had become the heart of the entire show. It wasn't just a surprising interruption. It was a moment that showed who Michael truly was. People would talk about it for days, weeks, even years. They would say things like, "No, he treated the man so kindly. He stayed calm the whole time. He made everyone feel at peace. He turned something surprising into something beautiful." That moment would become part of concert history, a story passed from fan to fan. A shining example of how kindness can transform any situation. As the crowd slowly made their way out of the stadium, they kept the memory of the night close to their hearts. It wasn't only the music that stayed with them. It was the emotion, the sincerity, the gentle way Michael handled a surprising moment in front of 80,000 people. It was, in every sense, pure class. And as people walked home, talked with friends, and shared their videos online, they all felt lucky to have witnessed such a meaningful moment. One that reminded everyone that kindness shines brightest when the world is watching.